Being a single mom and doing it all by yourself is brutal. Learn the brain and energy tools to get back to your center and overcome your challenges. Welcome to Single Moms Doing It All. This is Muriel Falous, your host. And today I have a returning guest. If you're new to me, you may not know that before I used to coach single moms, I used to coach on relationships, and I took a different direction because of my story. And I tell that in other episodes, so you can refer back to that. And today I have a guest who was in the show before to talk about the power of the heart and the intelligence of the heart. Her name is Mindie Kniss. She's a coach, the CEO at Lucra, and the host of her podcast, Lucrative Society. So I'm very happy to have her back. Hi, Mindie. How are you?
I am so happy to be back here. It's lovely to see you again.
Yes, and likewise. So before we go into your story and your story of, I don't know if you can call it overcoming or, but I don't know how to
We call it
describe.
that.
Yeah, I would love if you could tell us, because you were married to someone that was extraordinary. Like, I believe when you meet someone like that, you meet one person like that in a lifetime. And tell me if you agree. And tell us about your relationship before we go further in surviving his passing.
Sure. So, my husband, his name is Sean, and he and I met actually through Facebook, which was hilarious to me because I would have never guessed that I would have met somebody through Facebook, let alone the person that I ended up marrying. So the reason we connected in the first place was we were in the same industry. He was a speaker and a coach. I was also a speaker and a coach. And we got to know each other. That was back in 2009, 2010. We ended up getting together, dating. We ended up getting married in 2012. And throughout that time, most of our work was still very separate. He had his own business, I had my own business, and we kind of kept things distinct. It just made it easier for our relationship. But we had some crossovers. He would come and speak at my events, I would speak at his events, and so on. Well, as time went on, we ended up thinking, you know what, there's a lot of duplication here. We're really doing the same thing. We have the same message. And why don't we just combine forces? We had kind of been talking about that for a while, but then really what the catalyst was, he had a pretty significant disagreement with his business partners and ended up leaving that relationship. And then was kind of like, well, what now? So it just kind of worked out perfectly. I think the universe might have had something to do with that, just bringing that together and saying, okay, this is really true teamwork, because we were already that in our marriage. He was, to me, and depending on people's belief systems, I don't know if people believe in this, but what you might call a soul match. People say soulmate. We called it soul match because it's like the perfect match for who you are. We had a very, very similar worldview, but we're very, very different in our interactions and the way we were around people. I'm a huge introvert. He was a big extrovert. He loved the fame and the glory. I don't care that much about that. So, but we had the same message. Our mind and our heart were definitely, on the same path forward. So we had combined into one business, and that was going really well. That started in 2018, which then brings us right up into 2019, which was when he passed away.
And what that's funny because you talk about soul match or soulmate. I also have my own definition of soulmate, which is not only our romantic partners or our husbands. I have kids who are my soulmate because they came here to make me evolve.
Yeah.
But in your case, the beauty of it is that you're compatible, but you're very different. So it somehow helps you get balanced and get somewhere in the middle for both of you to learn from each other. So
It
that's
it is so, so true that, and actually we said that in our wedding vows. We said this is a relationship about growth. And if we stop growing, we're out. We're not interested in that. So it was till the very end. I mean, honestly, it still is for me.
Yeah, because you have to deal with him not being here. It's still
Right.
a question of growth and adaptation. And that's where I would like to go next, because for single moms who have teenagers who act out, I know from experience that first, one of the most difficult thing, one of the strongest fear, in my case with my teenagers, when they started experimenting with crazy party drugs and stuff, was that I would find them dead. And I was trying to control that. I was trying to control for them to be safe 24/7, 100%, which made me crazy and spiraled me into depression. We don't have control over that. And my message is in two aspects. One, you have to adapt yourself to losing a dream that, in your case, maybe that you would have been there together or growing older together. So you have to say goodbye to that dream. So grieve that dream. And the other thing is, for moms, where I went with it, what I call co-parenting with the universe, is knowing that, God forbid, I would lose a kid, because people in this podcast know I started talking a little bit about one of my kids committing, like trying to kill himself. Even if, God forbid, that happens, you will be provided the tools. You have what it takes no matter what happens. And that really is my message. And that's why I wanted you to tell your story, to see what helped you, what is there a thought or a concept or a belief that helped you navigate the loss? And maybe you're not yet where you on the other side completely, but to get to where you are today.
You know what's so interesting, just hearing you describe that, I can also speak to it from the perspective of his parents. Because for those listeners that don't know, Sean was in a wheelchair. He had a very severe disability, and his parents were worried about him all the time. Now, not saying they didn't have their reasons for that. When he was born, they were told that he was going to die. So that, created this whole thing. But in their mind, they would have really loved for him to just stay at home nearby in Chicago for his whole life. And that's not what he wanted.
Yeah.
So later, now he wasn't a teenager, he was into his 30s, but he had never had that rebellion of leaving home and trying all the drugs, doing the crazy things. He did that in his 30s.
A late bloomer.
Well, he didn't really have the opportunity before that, because it was only when I was taking him out with me that we would be somewhere. And I'll give you a very easy example. He was a vegan when I met him. We were at a party in California once, and I look across the table and he's eating salami down at the other side of the table. Anyway, all of that to say, that wasn't his dream to stay at home. That would have made
Yeah.
his parents happy, and it would have maybe helped them not worry as much. But you can't control them. And you have to recognize that, especially as they get older through their teens, that they may have different dreams than you have. So I just wanted to add that in. I can speak to kind of that side of it and then my side of it. My side is, there is always potentially something to worry about.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested in spending my time worrying. So yes, he had a very severe disability, and yes, that came with a lot of different challenges in our relationship and in his life. But really, the things that I have really used to buoy myself up in this last year and a half are all the things that I've always been talking about anyway. I've been teaching on the heart for over a decade. I've been talking about doing mindset work for over a decade. I have been doing, not just talking about it, but actually doing the work. Sean and I called that being self-cleaning ovens. Like anytime there was an issue in our relationship, most people would say, oh, it's your fault, because it's not me. But we said, no, we both are going to be self-cleaning ovens. So we need to look inside and look at, where am I in this? Like, what is my part in this? So we had always been doing that. So yes, this was a huge, massive shift in life. And I definitely took my time. So right after he passed away, like I said, I'm an introvert, so I did not want to be around people and talking and doing all the things. I basically gave myself 2 weeks from his death till we did a celebration of life for him. That to me was like the public display of, okay, let's honor him. And then I am out. So I actually left where we were living in Arizona and I went to California for 2.5 months, solo in the desert by myself, and just felt every single aspect of that grief and trauma and just all of it. And I'm so grateful that I had the capacity to do that too. And my situation was such that I could do that. We didn't have children, so I didn't have to worry about somebody else. I don't have a regular job. I work
Ah,
for myself.
you work,
So
yeah.
I was able to take the time that I needed away. Um, and it, kind of miraculously, we were in between real estate deals. So essentially, we were moving out of one house and buying another house. But at the very time of his death, it worked out that I could sell the old house and not buy the new
Oh,
house. So I was
yeah.
essentially free from
Any attachment.
that.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
of that stuff that most people, I think, would have to still manage and deal with. So I was very, very blessed in that. So in those 2.5 months, that to me was the best thing. It's full on self-care, and that's all I did. Like, that is all I did. Then coming into 2020 last year, I still had some time. I ended up moving. I did not want to stay in the same city where he and I had lived because every single thing reminded me of him. And I have continued the journey, though, of just doing my work, which I feel is very, very much on my purpose, like very, it's heart centered and very mission focused. I'm still doing that. But the reason I'm able to, and a lot of people have commented, wow, it seems like you've gotten through that like really, really quickly. And to the extent that I will always, always, always miss him and love him. And some days I feel much more sad than others. But these days, I'm like, he and I were both here for a purpose, and he might have checked out, because he was done. But I'm the one that's still here, and I'm going to continue with that. But the best things that help are the mindset work, the heart set work, doing the inner work on one's self, and then really putting up boundaries where you need to put up boundaries.
Oh, boundaries are crucial always. And that's funny because there are so many elements in what you said that resonate with what I teach. When you talk about self-cleaning ovens, I always tell people, don't bleed your wounds on your kids.
Right.
So take care of your stuff. I was recently asked in an interview what advice I would give to a mother who was pregnant. I was like, clean your own side of the fence, because that's going to be a major issue when you're going to have kids and you don't want to damage them with your stuff. The other thing is you took the time to grieve. And for moms who struggle with stuff like I struggle with, or what they are struggling with, like with kids who are mentally going through mental illness, or doing substances, or it's a huge amount of stress. And I know that, like you, I'm a coach, so I had to apply my own stuff exponentially to be able
Yes.
to bounce back from depression and stay sane even now. The thing that I didn't do, because I'm a single mom, and I didn't realize it wasn't that obvious, because I fixed what needed to be fixed in the moment to stay composed, and I'm taking care of my kids. I didn't cry enough. I did, and it wasn't obvious. And now I have heart issues because stuff stayed stuck in my body, and now I'm healing it. And the importance of crying and going through everything, like you said, it cannot be emphasized enough.
It can't be. And I can speak so clearly to that because I hate that.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
I hate just that. I don't know if you know about Enneagrams or your audience knows about
A
Enneagram.
little bit.
I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, which is generally very optimistic, very positive. We're called the adventurers in life because we want it to be fun and engaging, and like that is me. So then this, I'm like, oh, I
Yeah,
hate this. And I knew it was so crucially important because, to your point, I'm like, if I don't let this out, it's going to get stuck in. And then that turns into, as they say, the issues are in the tissues. So, to the extent that I could, I mean, some days it was just too much. And I'm like, I can't even feel any more of this. I just need to go out for a walk or something. But to the extent that I could, which mostly I wasn't doing anything else. So that was really what I was focused on. I just let it. And the way that I looked at it was almost as if it was this process of being floating on the ocean.
mhm,
And as you're floating on the ocean, you do not have any control
yeah,
when the waves come. You are just floating. And so sometimes a wave comes, and I think it's very resonant probably for parents of kids because sometimes they just may feel like this is out of control.
yeah.
But it doesn't always, it won't always be that way. Like that period will end. And for me, that grieving, it would come in, and sometimes the wave was huge and it would just knock me over, and I would be on the floor essentially bawling my eyes out. And then sometimes it was just a little wave where I'd be a little sad or I'd just tear up a little bit. But I knew without a doubt that this is just one point in
Mm.
time, and then the wave will pass, and then there will be another wave.
Yes.
It just keeps going. One of the things that I wanted to add in though about the boundary conversation, I feel like for parents, mothers especially, because like you have that just mama bear energy, and that is fierce, and you would do anything to protect your kid.
Yeah.
One of the things I see is that then overpowers sometimes the boundary of what you yourself are willing to tolerate. And the problem with that is that doesn't really help anybody. That doesn't serve your child or your teen, and it certainly doesn't serve yourself.
Mhm.
So maintaining those boundaries, understanding what your own boundaries are, and then being able to maintain them, I think is probably one of the best pieces of advice that I could give to any mother of a teenager.
And that's even being a better mother because we are models. And
Yeah.
what we teach them, they will reproduce later in life. So even if you go from the mother point of view, you want to teach them to be fulfilled and happy and balanced. But there is also an aspect of boundaries with yourself. When you are in the mode of protecting and taking care, like I had to be, because my story is I was married with someone who suffers from addiction. So I had to protect my kids. So from the moment I divorced, like which is about 15 years ago, until now, I'm still in protection mode. So when you're too much invested in that and you don't take the time to go back to you and put that boundary with certain times, I don't know if you have to take 2 hours a week where you don't think about the kids, you don't think, you think about you. What do you need to attend to? What do you need to your heart, because you are an expert of working with the heart. I used to say my heart is broken until I caught myself and I said, oh my God, no wonder I manifested something in my heart. Because I used to say it broke my heart, what they had to go through. I stopped saying that. And I really now, it's never too late. Even if you don't do it in the moment, sometime later, some years later, from some incident that happened, it is time now to maybe let the sorrow come up, let it flow out and learn from it. And I'm at the same time overwhelmed by feelings, and I marvel at the beauty of our heart and how it can guide us when we let it and when we attend to it.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that you caught yourself with that broken heart aspect. I made it an intention of mine from day one when he passed, never to say that, because my heart wasn't broken. My heart was actually filled from this amazing 10 years that we had together, and more love, and this incredible, truly like powerful relationship, well beyond what I would have imagined. And I liken it to going to the gym. If we go to the gym and we work out our biceps, that tears the muscles, but we don't say, oh, my bicep is broken. We
yeah,
say, no, I'm
yeah,
getting stronger.
yeah.
I'm building muscle. Well, the heart is the same way. It tears, yes, and that is painful, and that is sometimes tragic, and like there's so much grief going on there, but it's not broken, and it will rebuild itself even stronger.
Yeah. And so, do you feel that because of the power of your heart, you got stronger as a person because of what happened?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The heart is the source of our courage. And after going through something like that, you know, it, and people I think who haven't gone through something like that might not get this. It might seem ridiculous, but it takes courage to even go outside after something like that happens. It takes courage to go to the grocery store and buy milk. It takes courage to do normal things, to then, especially like what I do, show up in front of my clients and coach them or speak to them. um, that is all based in the heart. That is, and like speaking French, that word
Yeah,
cœur, that is
cœur.
heart.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
the same exact word. That's where courage, our English word courage, comes from. It is all based in that. So yes, 100%.
Did your spirituality help you? Because the fact that you are still are present to work with people, I consider that sacred work. It's not random that you're doing that. You probably came to do that, and it's sacred. So, how does the spiritual side of it help you do that with even more power?
I love that question. Thank you for asking. It comes down to my worldview, or I guess my belief in the universe. I don't think that anything happens by accident. I don't think that we show up without a plan. I think that all, like, there is a plan. I think it's written in our hearts from day one. And for me, it's like nothing happens to me. And Sean felt the same way. Like, stuff doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. That was actually one of the last things that he said prior to his death. Like, he just wanted to make that so clear. And I totally agree with that. And I always have agreed with that. That's the other thing, is like, it wasn't like this experience happened and then it was a wake up call to me. No, I feel like I had already woken up to, like I said earlier, my purpose, my reason for being, all of those things. And I was already on that path. So then, having been on that path and recognizing the universe doesn't give us anything that we cannot get through, or that isn't implicitly designed to make us stronger. So yes, it sucked to go through. And there are many days where it still sucks. There'll be something that comes up and I'm like, oh, like, gosh, I miss you. Like, it's so frustrating that he's not here. And yet I also know that he was ready to go.
Yeah.
Life for him, there was a lot of challenges, physically, emotionally, with certain relationships in his life. There was a lot of stuff, and I think he was done. So he was like, Mindie, you got this.
And that's funny because I had a conversation yesterday with my daughter. She's studying psychology, so we have a lot of interesting conversations. And I was telling her that in our society, we're taught to have a list of stuff to do, and then it's done, check, we're done. But the problem is that when we're talking about growth, healing, evolving to the next level, you can't say that you're really done because it comes back, like you said, in waves. And if you go with the approach of, I'm done with that, I grieved, you're going to suffer because you're going to feel like a failure because it's going to come back. And you may even be hopeless and feel powerless because you thought you were done with that, and yet it's coming back. So what could you share with the audience to help them? Because you said sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. That's why I was asking you when you may not be done yet. How do you leave that? What helps you accept that?
Well, it comes down to where you are living from. So in the head is where fear, frustration, doubt, anger, all of those things, that's up here. In the heart, those things don't even exist. The heart is about joy. The heart is about peace and love. So if you are at the point where you're like, I'm done, I'm good, I've gotten all those things that I needed to get from that, I'm out, that's simply your ego trying to protect you, trying to say, whoa, that was really hard. So I'm just going to move past that now. I'm done. And again, ego, that's in the head. So that's not coming from the truth of who you are and the growth potential that you have, which is more like a soul-based level in your heart.
And for moms, because I had to deal with that, I have a degree in finance and accounting. So for me, once you put the notes on the final financial statements, it's done, it's clean. And I had to learn not to apply that to my kids, because I was like, okay, we dealt with that issue. I did what I had to do. And I felt so confused and frustrated at the beginning when it was coming back again from another angle. I had to learn to not put that check mark and just be in the present moment and deal with whatever is. So that really applies.
Yeah, I think, it's much easier to attempt to compartmentalize
Yeah.
different things. Like, okay, we're done with that, moving on to all this other stuff. But again, that's just ego trying to make it easy, trying to make it
Fiction.
keep you safe from all those feelings and all those struggles. But it's just not reality.
It's not. And it becomes so much easier when you start being more at ease with the uncertainty and give it to the universe. Give to the universe what belongs to the universe and stop wanting to control everything. Understand that it's a force for good.
Yeah.
If you turn your head on the other side, it's not going to do bad stuff to your kids. It's going to continue protecting them. That's how I was able to uh, become balanced and be happy with challenges, let's say. um, what As far as your work, do you have a vision of where you see yourself? Do you know, or do you just feel from the heart and you do that like on a day to day, maybe not for business, not day to day, but year to year? Or do you have something in mind, like a big
You
vision?
know, yeah, it's very open at this point. I went from, so in 2019, we had a team of 7 people and we were doing about $500,000 of business. Then all that stopped. I disbanded the whole team. I'm like, I'm not even going to work anymore. So I took a lot of time to just reset, refresh. And in a lot of ways, it's been really, in many ways, such a blessing, because I think what we were attempting to build was not even on a solid foundation.
Okay.
We were, I would say we were playing, I mean, granted, like we made great money, yes. We had great people, yes. But we were also kind of playing at a level where we were playing like the phrase too big for our britches. Like we were, just because we had a lot of social media following and things like that. I think most people would assume that we were like bigger than we were. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to build on facades
Uh,
anymore. I want to just tear everything down to the foundation, to the ground level, and start fresh. So I mean, even you emailed and you were emailing to my old assistant. I was like, there's no
that's
people
what I
anymore.
noticed. Yeah.
It's just me. And for now, I'm giving myself the space and the time to look into, I mean, because how crazy. I thought, hey, at the beginning of 2020, I'm like, okay, spent all this time last year in the grief and now 2020, like I am ready. It's my year. And then coronavirus, what? So that year, I can hardly even count that as a year. So now 2021 being so much further along that grief journey, feeling for the most part really good, back to what I would call kind of my normal self for the most part. I'm just looking ahead and saying, what is it that I want to create? So one of the things that I've done business wise is tear apart all the different things that we were doing. We had so many different programs and courses and events. We were so busy, and I think that I was a little bit miserable back then because it was so busy. So now I am, like last year, I did my last Heart Path retreat. That was a big thing for me forever, but that's done. Like I'm taking out all of the programming and just getting it down to like one or two things this year.
Did it also change the way you relate to people? Did some people
Yes.
had to go out of your life? Because usually when we transition something so big, like we really see what needs to be and what we need to let go of.
Yeah, you know what? That's happened on kind of two different levels. The the more immediate level, there were some people in my life that I was friends with or friendly with, but mostly because Sean was friends with them. So they were in my life just because of him. And now that he's not here, I'm like, I don't really resonate with that person. So I have just let those relationships go. And when I see them, it's lovely, it's totally fine, but they're not somebody that I'm going to invest in heavily because, like I said, we're not on the same level. It's just a different resonance. So there has been that's been a definite shift. But again, one of the beautiful parts of that is because I'm an introvert, because I like to focus in on a very, very small group of people and make those really in-depth relationships, it's actually allowed some of the, just bloat. I get that's a terrible word to call people, but the
The
bloating of those
Yeah.
relationships, I've just let that go. And now I'm back to like this core group, which is just amazing. So that's on the immediate level. On kind of the grander scale, one of the things that I've said a lot recently is having gone through all of this stuff, it has taught me so much about patience. And I would say that I am more patient with the world, like, or I guess the universe. I'm more patient with the way that life happens, but I'm almost less patient with people now because people complain about stuff that doesn't matter,
Yeah.
and they worry about stuff that doesn't matter, and they're focused on stuff that doesn't matter. And I'm like, I don't have time for that anymore.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy because I'm like, first of all, you don't know how much time you have. I
Exactly.
mean, in Sean's case, it was a freak accident. It was like one day we were fine. We were going to the gym. And then I came home myself that night and he was dead. Like it was within 4 hours, he was gone. So you have no idea how long you're going to get. So if you're talking about dreams that you have, and this comes up with my clients all the time because I work specifically with people who are looking to become a coach, start a business, grow that business, impact other people. And they talk a lot about, oh, I would love to do this. And I'm like, then let's go do it. I will help you. I will put those pieces into place that you need for the guidance that you're asking, but you need to go do it. Stop talking about it and go do. So I have way less patience now with people.
I'm the same way. First, because back in 2017, I almost died from an Hep B for about 2 days. They didn't know if I would make it, and they told me so. So our the fact that we're temporary here became very obvious. Then what happened with my kids, it reinforced that. And that drives me now to want to really find the joy. Find the joy, because the rest we know we'll deal with. I have what it takes. I've dealt with stuff. Where is the joy? And that's where I do my work because I tend to be serious and heavy. So my work and my word for this year is light, being light, because
Mm.
that changes everything. Um, I I find my own answers in my heart. Do you have maybe a small exercise or a technique? Because I tell people to put their hand here. I I relax them, and the first answer that comes, they know, because moms don't know. I just had a mom asking if her son wanted to invite his girlfriend to sleep over. She didn't know what to do, so she asked in a Facebook group, and I'm like, you have the answers if you let
Exactly.
yourself. No one can tell you what to do with your kids, but you need to be sure of what you experience in your body to know if it's the right thing. Is there a technique or a way different than what I just explained to get that?
Yeah, I mean, you're on the right track. Absolutely. There's a very, very simple technique that was created by the Heart Math Institute. And what they do is they do all the research on this, and it's all scientifically proven, peer-reviewed research. So most of my work has come from their studies. You know, a lot of the research that I did when I was writing my dissertation was all from that. And this very, very simple technique, it's only 3 steps. So, so easy. Step one is bring your awareness, your focus to your heart. So you're actually having them do that by placing their hand on that. That automatically brings that focus there. The second step is generate a positive feeling. So
Okay.
that could be love, that could be gratitude. Pick one, you know, whatever one you want to allow. And then here's the key, and this is kind of the trick to it, because some people will say, Mindie, I'm not experiencing anything. This doesn't change anything. I'm like, yeah, because you're still here. If you're just thinking about an emotion, if you're thinking about love or you're thinking about gratitude, that's not going to do it. You actually need to allow it in and feel it. So when I feel really extreme gratitude, it almost feels like this expansiveness
Yes.
in my chest. So I allow that to happen. I get into my body. So again, step one, bringing that focus down here. It does help to put your hand on your heart. Step two, generating that positive feeling. And then step three is radiating that feeling to yourself first. Some people just want to send it out. I'm like, no, you first. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first. So radiating that feeling to yourself and then to others. And the others could be the world at large, it could be a specific person or a group of people, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
The whole point is to get into what is called coherence.
Yeah.
And coherence is what helps them make those better decisions, or at least hear the answers from within, because you can't hear that stuff if you're not in coherence.
Thank you for clarifying all that, because I know that they're going to use it a lot. As moms, we need answers. It's very useful. Still, my question of choice for my guest is about self-love. That hasn't changed. So, what is your definition of self-love?
My definition of self love is simply caring for yourself. It's that easy. If I honor myself and I think of myself as a sacred being with a purpose, with a mission, I have to care for myself in order to do that thing, you know, in order to do those tasks or build that mission. So self care is huge. Self care would be like the activity of loving oneself or self love. And really, it's just making that a priority.
Yeah. Thank you. For people, because there are moms in the audience who are entrepreneurs and they would like maybe to check what you're doing, where can they check that out?
Sure. So everything is at my business website, which is lucra.com, as in lucrative, but lucra.com. And I'd love to drop in. Can I give them something free as well?
Of course.
So this, you don't need to opt in, you don't need to do anything. If you want to learn about that heart-centered stuff, I have meditations on an app called the Insight Timer. So it's a free app for anybody's phone. You just download Insight Timer. If you look up my name, Mindie Kniss, I have a couple different heart meditations that bring you into that coherence space, along with some affirmations and some other stuff. But that's totally free if they would find that helpful.
Terrific. I'll put that in the description as well of this episode.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Mindie. I love this conversation because it's literally connected to the heart. It's authentic, it's real, it's beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for having me as a return guest. I feel feel so honored. It's awesome. But truly, it was great to see you again. Always great to talk to you. And of course, if anybody in your audience needs anything, please just have them reach out.
Thank you. And I'll see you in the next episode with another guest or solo. I don't know yet. Have a wonderful week. Being a single mom can be challenging, but you don't have to face it alone. Join our community at facebook.com/groups/single and doing it all and receive tools, tips, and free group coaching. And if you like this podcast, please review and rate us on iTunes. I would really appreciate it.